When upon entering the room, his professor asked an impossible question. What he answered left everyone, including the professor, speechless. When Jake woke up, the sun had already risen over the horizon, illuminating the college room with its golden rays. The 25-year-old woke up startled, realizing he hadn't heard the sound of his alarm. Oh my God. What time is it? He asked, looking for his cell phone. He realized that his cell phone had run out of battery during the night. Oh no. He looked at the clock on the wall, and it read 9:30. Damn it. Jake huffed quickly, throwing the blanket aside. The young man began to get ready as quickly as possible as he was late for an important class. Mathematical physics. It was one of those days when everything seemed to go wrong. The alarm didn't go off because he'd forgotten to charge his phone the night before. His clothes were everywhere, so he couldn't find the shirt he wanted to wear. And even the coffee he tried to make didn't work, because the coffee machine had just broken. The boy hurriedly dressed in whatever he could find with no time for breakfast. What a day, thought Jake, his frustration middling with the urgency to leave. In the bathroom, while brushing his teeth at lightning speed, the toothpaste fell on his clean shirt. Not today, he exclaimed, trying to wipe away the stain, which only got worse with each attempt. With time running out, he put on his dirty t-shirt anyway and ran off, picking up his keys and backpack on the way. As it was a day seemed to be written in the stars as the worst day of Jake's life. The young man stumbled down the stairs of the dormitory, twisting his ankle. He stopped for a moment, feeling a twinge of pain, but he knew he couldn't stop. He took a deep breath and continued. It's just a bad day, that's all. He tried to convince himself, limping towards the university bus stop. The wait seemed endless. Every minute that passed, Jake became more anxious. When the bus finally arrived, it was so crowded that he could barely get on. F. Could this day get any worse? He thought, squeezed between the passengers. The journey was slow, stopping at every point, and everything seemed to conspire against his determination to get class. The boy constantly glanced at the watch on his wrist, feeling his worry grow. The class he was about to miss wasn't just any class. It was Professor Landon's class on mathematical and physical theories, a subject for which Jake had a deep passion. What's more, the man was extremely annoying when it came to being late or absent, so Jake was already in trouble. Finally, the bus arrived at his building. The student jumped out before the doors had even fully opened, running towards his class. His breathing was labored, his shirt slightly disheveled and his backpack swinging on his back. He ran through the corridors, cutting through people who were starting their day more calmly. He knew that day's class was crucial, an opportunity to learn from one of the greatest experts in mathematics and physics. And even though the day had gone so wrong, Jake was determined not to miss this chance. The boy entered the classroom with a mixture of relief and apprehension. But the curious glances of his classmates followed him as he looked for a place to sit. Landon, a middle-aged man with a reputation for rigor and exigency, watched him with a look that mixed disdain and opportunity. "Mr. Jake Sully, what a pleasant surprise to see you today," said the teacher, a little annoyed. "Did you know that our class starts at 8:30 and not at 9:45? All the students laughed quietly as the boy settled down, still a little embarrassed by Landon's scolding. "I'm sorry, Professor. My cell phone ran out of battery last night, and that's why he tried to explain, but the man interrupted him. How convenient. So your phone ran out of battery, right? Well, since this class is a joke to you, perhaps you can enlighten us with your wisdom on a mathematical problem. We're just discussing it. But tell us, how would you prove to me that 0 is equal to 1? Asked the professor with a sarcastic smile on his lips. Because he knew it was an unanswerable question. He just wanted to see that boy suffer the humiliation. Jake was paralyzed for a moment. But before we continue with the story, We want to know, if you were in this student's shoes and faced with a question like this, what would you do? Let us know in the comments. Now back to the story. The silence in the room was deafening. No one wanted to be in the young man's shoes at that moment. Everyone knew that the question was a trick, an attempt by the teacher to punish him for being late. Landon was notorious for his impossible questions. It was common for. From an unconventional point of view of set theory and applying a new interpretation of quantum logic, it is possible to argue that 0 can be equal to 1. A gasp of surprise went through the room. The teacher, raising an eyebrow, responded with disbelief. Interesting, Mr. Sully, but mathematically speaking, that's absurd. 0 can never equal 1. Jake, unflustered, continued, Not really. Those words made Land and feel uncomfortable, that a petulant student was contradicting him. But the young man continued, If we consider 0 as an empty set and apply the principle of quantum duality, where the state of a system can exist in multiple realities, in an alternative reality, the empty set could contain an element which is 1. So using quantum logic, where the superposition of states is a possibility, 0 and 1 can coexist in a dual quantum state. Therefore, in this scenario, 0 equals 1. The room fell silent. The students looked at each other, impressed by the boy's response. Even the professor himself seemed disoriented for a moment. His expression of certainty was giving way to doubt. As a physicist, he couldn't rule out such a hypothesis, but he had never thought of it. Mr. Sully, you are suggesting a quantum approach to set theory, something that challenges the foundations of mathematics. That's intriguing, explained Landon. Now, with a tone of reluctant respect, Jake's classmates looked at him with new admiration. What had once seemed like an opportunity for the teacher to humiliate a late student had turned into a moment of genuine academic surprise. Jake finally took a breath, feeling the weight of the stares on him. He knew that his answer wasn't just a stroke of luck. There was a story behind that knowledge, something that not even Professor Landon could have anticipated. But what happened? How did he know such an answer? That's what everyone in the room wondered. While the physicist, now visibly impressed, contemplated the possibility of having an unknown genius in his class. It turns out that Jake Sully's background was as unusual as his response in the classroom. Born into a modest family, the boy always showed an inclination for mathematics and physics from an early age. His fascination was not just with numbers, but with the complex theories they represented. At only 10, he would spend hours reading advanced books, immersing himself in theories that challenged his mind. At school, Jake was an outstanding student, but often misunderstood. His teachers recognized his talent, but also noticed his tendency to question and go beyond the standard curriculum. Why do we accept these rules without question? He often asked, wanting to explore the depths of mathematics and physics, which was not well regarded by the teachers. His teenage years were marked by a crucial event that shaped his life. He took part in a young science talent competition and presented an innovative theory that challenged certain principles of quantum physics. The theory was initially met with skepticism, but one of the judges, a renowned physicist, saw potential in Jake's thinking. This physicist, Dr. Harrison, became his mentor, encouraging him to explore his ideas without fear of conventional limits. Under the scientist's guidance, Jake began working on theories that merged concepts of sets, mathematical logic, and quantum physics. It was unexplored territory, a field that promised to revolutionize current understanding. Jake's life, however, wasn't all studies. At home, he helped his parents, both workers who made constant sacrifices to ensure that the boy had educational opportunities. They didn't fully understand the scope of their son's talent, but they supported him unconditionally. One day, you're going to be a genius son. His mother used to say, Jake also faced the typical challenges of a teenager. There were moments of doubt, of questioning his place in the world. Because he was so different from other people, he wondered whether he should follow a more conventional path or his passion for science. When he finished high school, Jake received offers from several prestigious universities. He chose the university where Professor Landon taught, attracted by the reputation of the mathematics and physics department. It was a chance to further his studies and perhaps find others who shared his passion for challenging the status quo. The road until that moment had not been easy, but every challenge, every late night studying, every moment of doubt had contributed to the knowledge he now possessed. And there was more to his story, more to that knowledge that would surprise everyone. There was an incident when the boy was just 18 that became the true sowers of his genius knowledge. And his innovative approach to mathematical and physical theories, when he was still under the guidance of scientist Jake, suffered a near-fatal accident during an analysis in the Advanced Research Laboratory. There was a flaw in one of the experiments involving subatomic particles. The boy, who was close to the particle launcher, was exposed to an unknown form of radiation. Inexplicably, instead of causing him harm, the exposure triggered a transformation in his brain. In the days following the accident, Jake began to notice changes in his perception and understanding. He was already intelligent, but now he was beginning to see mathematical patterns with incredible clarity. To understand complex concepts of quantum physics that had previously been beyond his reach, it was as if the barriers limiting their understanding had been removed. Dr. Harrison, concerned, secretly sent him for a series of neurological tests. The results were astonishing. Exposure to radiation had altered the boy's neural structure, expanding his cognitive capacity in ways that defied scientific explanation. So, Jake continued his studies in exploring everything that mathematics and physics offered him, with his mind extraordinarily improved. He found himself able to understand and connect theories that others thought contradictory or impossible. The idea that 0 could equal 1 under certain quantum conditions was one of the many revolutionary theories he developed. However, the young man remained humble and reserved about his abilities. He knew that despite his exceptional intelligence, there was still a lot to learn. So after Jake's surprising answer about 0 being equal to 1, the atmosphere in the classroom was filled with a mixture of admiration and incredulity. Landon, who was a man who rarely showed surprise, looked at Jake with a new respect, and he suddenly announced, "Today's lesson ends here." None of the other students could believe that a simple student who really wasn't simple at all had managed to get the most feared of teachers to end his lesson early. He must have been really intrigued by Jake's answer. The students whispered as they left the room, and he did. Over the next few days, the professor's mind was so consumed by the absurd theory proposed by the boy that he spent hours on end at his desk, surrounded by books on quantum physics and advanced mathematics, trying to unravel the logic behind the idea 0 could be equal to 1 under those conditions. The more he studied, the more he became convinced that there was something genuinely revolutionary about the theory, determined to explore it further. The professor organized a special meeting with other physics and mathematics doctors, the university. Let's see if this theory stands up to the scrutiny of the best minds in our institution. On the day of the meeting, Jake was asked to introduce himself. The young man felt increasingly nervous as he was about to present his ideas to the most respected experts in the field of science. "It's now or never," he said to himself, taking a deep breath to calm his nerves. Landon introduced Jake to the assembly of academics. "This is the student who proposed a theory that could challenge our current understandings of mathematical logic and quantum physics," he explained. Jake began his presentation, explaining the fundamentals of his theory. He positioned himself in front of the board, his pen ready to draw the unimaginable. He began by drawing complex diagrams, lines and curves that intertwined in an endless dance of logic. Consider the dual nature of quantum systems. Jake began, his firm voice cutting through the silence in the room. If we look at the empty set as a quantum state, we can theorize the simultaneous existence of one. As he spoke, his pen glided across the board, formulating equations defied conventional understanding. He detailed every step of his reasoning, every variable and parameter. Here, he said, pointing to a series of mathematical symbols, if we apply superstring theory, we find an intersection where the properties of 0 and 1 are not mutually exclusive. The doctors and specialists watched fascinated. Jake explained everything as if he had been born for the day. And in this equation, he continued drawing a complex function. The inter is just case of a more comprehensive phenomenon. As the presentation went on, the scientists' initial skepticism gave way to rapt attention. They leaned forward, some frowning in concentration, others nodding as the implications of the boys' theory unfolded. At the end of the presentation, the room was silent. A silence, not of disbelief, but of deep surprise. Bravo! Really impressive. They started clapping and commenting excitedly. Landon, now clearly satisfied, gave a rare smile. Mr. Sully, it seems that you have not only surprised our greatest brains, but also challenged the existing scientific community. Congratulations! He left the meeting room feeling a mixture of relief, excitement, pride, and a little anxiety. He had done more than survived the scrutiny. He had opened the door to a new field of study when he was eager to explore further. Jake Sully's presentation at that academic meeting was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey. In the following months, the theory he proposed, now known as the Sully duality principle, began to gain recognition in the academic world. The young man was invited to publish his work in prestigious scientific journals and was also awarded the Young Innovator Prize in Theoretical Physics, a remarkable accolade for someone of his age. The award was confirmation of the impact of his ideas and his potential to contribute even more to science. The Sully duality principle became a topic of study and debate at universities around the world. Jake was invited to lectures and conferences where he shared his theories and explored the implications of his work. He became a respected name, graduating as a renowned mathematical physicist, specializing in quantum theories. But for the young man, recognition and awards were not the end, but the beginning of a mission to span the frontiers of human knowledge. He continued to work on his theories, collaborating with other scientists and brilliant minds. His aim was not only to understand the universe at its most fundamental scale, but also to inspire the next generation of scientists to question, explore, and dream. Professor Landon, who had initially doubted Jake, became one of his biggest supporters. You showed me that even the truths we consider fundamental can be changed. He told the young man in one of their many conversations. Jake Sully, the young man who surprised his classroom with an unexpected answer, was now a driving force in the world of theoretical physics, and his legacy promised to be long-lasting. Years later, sitting in his office surrounded by books and papers, Jake looked to the future with a smile. He knows that there is so much more to discover, and that each discovery is just one step on the infinite ladder of knowledge.